più o meno nel 1969 pensammo che l'architettura non era una faccenda talmente seria da impegnare tutta una vita, e quindi pensammo che, come ci aveva insegnato il nostro Leonardo Benevolo, che l'architetto è un essere umano che tra le altre cose fa anche dell'architettura. L'idea era di dedicare meno tempo possibile alla progettazione, cioè di risolverla con un disegno unico, una specie di griglia continua, in questo caso è 3 cm x 3, che costruiva degli oggetti tridimensionali senza scala e senza uso, istogrammi, ma poi poteva trasformarsi in mobili, come diventarono poi i mobili misura, che credo siano ancora in commercio sotto il nome di Quaderna. Potevano diventare case, c'è un catalogo di istogrammi, un catalogo dei mobili, un catalogo di case, e poi diventando la griglia enorme poteva coprire la terra, diventando parte di un progetto di urbanizzazione totale che era il Monumento Continuo.
Monumento Continuo è appunto questo oggetto che diventa 3 km per 3 km e circonda tutta la Terra, resa oramai omogenea, globalizzata dal sistema economico esportato dovunque.
Presently, design, relating man to the environment, produces a complexity of new needs and a new kind of poverty. Design may become a cross-discipline. Therefore, we visualize an image guide. Design is the formulation of problems for the evolution of a new mentality, guideline for a new society.
In 1969 to 70, we developed a sweeping argument on the possibilities of architecture as a means of critique. Beginning to use the demonstratio per absurdum systematically, we produced a model of total urbanization called the continuous monument. This project, through the images of a negative, critical utopia, pushed to extremes the classical conception of the relationship between nature and architecture, city and country. The rhetorical figure of the demonstration by absurdity laid bare, through photomontages, the public image of a new relationship, no longer of opposition, but of hybridization and alliance. The continuous monument takes to the limit the modern distinction between natural and artificial and opens the way to a new hybrid philosophy of reconstructing the relations between architecture and nature, in which the two terms blend in a single design. The only possibility for architecture is in its monumental extension. All the problems of quality of space, functional destination or sensibility have been removed. The continuous monument. It is not the simulation of a future situation, but works as a mental paradox, a critical project not buildable and therefore negative. On the other hand, during those same years, we realized that society could no longer be identified with the rational mechanical model of the all-production factory of early capitalism, but that we were well on our way to another model, the supermarket, a place of consumption, a faceless anonymous container within which goods were displayed and moved without requiring architecture in order to be represented. Cristiano Toraldo di Francia.
The inhabitants of the invisible house say, "What we are doing is architecture because it occupies space and time and the relationships between us and others." Every building on earth is destined for some unknown ceremony. Only to a few initiates is it given to draw aside the brick, wooden, iron, and synthetic curtains which hide the secret rites. Beyond the use of architecture as a service, shelter, microclimate, another type of use is continually happening. This is the symbolic use of architecture. Architecture is a formalization of the symbols of knowledge, dominion, procreation, and immortality. Architecture is, thus, an iceberg hiding most of itself, as the innumerable services and technical apparatus that make it work remain unseen. so also do the rites and symbols that render it desirable and necessary, until suitable therapy succeeds in bringing human beings into harmony with themselves, with no more need for security blankets.
Exodus by Rem Koolhaas explains Superstudio's continuous monument. All of the visuals are produced by Superstudio. Once, a city was divided in two parts. One part became the good half, the other part the bad half. The inhabitants of the bad half began to flock to the good part of the divided city. If this situation had been allowed to continue forever, the population of the good half would have doubled, while the bad half would have turned into a ghost town. After all attempts to interrupt this undesirable migration had failed, the authorities of the bad part made desperate and savage use of architecture. They built a wall around the good part of the city, making it completely inaccessible to their subjects. The wall was a masterpiece. The good half now glimpsed only over the forbidding obstacle from an agonizing distance, became even more irresistible. Those trapped, left behind in the gloomy bad half, became obsessed with vain plans for escape. Hopelessness reigned supreme on the wrong side of the wall. As so often before in this history of mankind, architecture was the guilty instrument of despair. It is possible to imagine a mirror image of this terrifying architecture. A force as intense and devastating, but used instead in the service of positive intention. Division, isolation, inequality, aggression, destruction, all the negative aspects of the wall could be the ingredients of a new phenomenon. Architectural warfare against undesirable conditions. This would be an immodest architecture committed not to timid improvements, but to the provision of totally desirable alternatives. The inhabitants of this architecture, though strong enough to love it, would become its voluntary prisoners, ecstatic in freedom of their architectural confines. Contrary to modern architecture and its desperate afterbirths, this neo-architecture is neither authoritarian nor hysterical. It is the hedonistic science of designing collective facilities that fully accommodate individual desires. From the outside, this architecture is a sequence of serene monuments. The life inside produces a continuous state of ornamental frenzy and decorative delirium, an overdose of symbols. This will be an architecture that generates its own successes. Suddenly, a strip of intense metropolitan desirability runs through the center. This strip is like a runway, a landing strip for the new architecture of collective monuments. Two walls enclose and protect this zone to retain its integrity and to prevent any contaminations of its surface by the cancerous organism that threatens to engulf it. Soon, the first inmates beg for admission. Their number rapidly swells into an unstoppable flow. We witness the exodus. The physical structure of the old town will not be able to stand the continuing competition of this new architectural presence. It will become a bed of ruins. This is the front line of the architectural warfare wagoned on the old town. Here, the merciless progress of the strip performs a daily miracle. The corrective rage of the architecture is at its most intense. In a continuous confrontation with the old city, existing structures are destroyed by the new architecture, and trivial fights break out between the inmates of the old town and the voluntary prisoners of the strip. Some monuments of the old civilization are incorporated into the zone after a rehabilitation of their questionable purposes and programs. A model of the strip, continuously modified through incoming information, conveys strategies, plans, and instructions. Life in the building barracks at the tip of the strip can be hard, but the ongoing creation of this object leaves its builders exhausted with satisfaction.
Pensavamo, come tanti altri in quegli anni, che il mondo potesse essere cambiato radicalmente e che qualsiasi sforzo doveva essere indirizzato alla stessa meta. Eravamo, si direbbe ora, un movimento d'avanguardia.
Era il momento in cui la fiducia nella scienza come progressione luminosa, diciamo, della società stava entrando un po' in crisi, ci si cominciava a chiedere se fosse proprio tutto oro quello che riluceva.
Ascolteremo il nostro cuore e il nostro respiro. Ci guarderemo vivere. Eseguiremo complicatissime acrobazie muscolari. Eseguiremo complicatissime acrobazie mentali. Racconto, canto, musica, danza saranno parole per dire e per dirsi. L'unica arte sarà la nostra vita.